Hello, I'm Liselle and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things writing, traditional publishing, and a little bit of reading. And today is my mid-year writing update for 2026. So this is basically a video that I do about halfway through the year to do a roundup of everything that I've been working on thus far, kind of what have I finished working on, what am I still working on, and what am I planning to work on maybe new in the second half of the year. And so this is just kind of a way for you to see at a glance everything that I've got going on if you're not keeping up with my regular writing vlogs, though now a little semi-regular, trying to get back on regular writing vlogs. So that's what this video is going to be. I do have timestamps below where I've separated it based on kind of completing projects, ongoing, that sort of thing. So if you're only interested in one sort of project, you can feel free to jump to that section of the video and check it out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Beginning with the completed projects, I'm going to talk about A Clash of Carnivores, which is the second book in my young adult dark academia fantasy trilogy, which started with A Mastery of Monsters. The series is about a girl whose life is on a purposeful downward spiral that is until her brother goes missing, and she suspects that an on-campus secret society is responsible for his disappearance. But the only way for her to infiltrate that society is to team up with a boy who is months away from becoming a literal flesh-eating monster, and they pair up to compete in a series of deadly tasks so that they're able to complete this bond so that she can help him retain his humanity. But her plan is just to find her brother and get the heck out of there. But she finds that once she's in the society, it is not so easy to just get back out. So that's A Mastery of Monsters. This is the second book. It features its own deadly competition. There's a deadly competition in the first book. There's another deadly competition in this book. I would say there's even more slow burn romance than there was before. There's a lot of new characters. The sort of political intrigue aspects are really dialed up in this book, because in the first book, I had to spend a lot of time establishing the world and explaining everything and making it clear so that readers could understand how all of this works. And then in the second book, I kind of just really get to have fun with it, which is exciting. I also have a new point of view, which I've basically at this point spoiled in many different ways. But if you've read the first book, the new point of view is going to be Riley, who I'm really excited about doing a point of view from. This is my first point of view from a bi character, like an openly bi character sort of conversation. So I'm really excited about getting to have her point of view in there as well. And I think that's a really exciting addition. And I just think this is really a fun second book. I think with me, the difficulty in writing a trilogy is that oftentimes that second book can feel really like a lull in between books and not as exciting as the first book. It feels like it's doing a lot of build up for the final book, and it's just kind of a waypoint. But I worked really hard to make this book stand on its own and feel like its own complete arc book, so you can get that satisfaction while still looking forward to the book that comes after it. And I actually think this is better than the first book. I'm really excited about that. I also happily got a starred review from Kirkus for the sequel, which is great because it's kind of not as common to get, to have people like, to have the trades review a sequel at all. And it's also difficult to get a starred review for a sequel from trades. So I'm really excited about that. We also recently picked the narrators. It's actually hilariously the same two narrators that did Delicious Monsters, but flipped. So the one narrator, Angel Peen, is now doing the dominant POV, which is August, and Sandra Okuboyejo is doing the less prominent POVs, doing Riley's POV. But in Delicious Monsters, they were switched, with Sandra doing the more prominent POV and Angel doing the less prominent POV voice. So it's kind of fun to have them swap, but they are fantastic narrators. They did an amazing job with Delicious Monsters, and so I already know that they're going to do so good with Clash. Angel's already a rock star with A Mastery of Monsters, so very excited about the audiobook as well. And so just looking forward to being able to share this all with you very, very soon. And if you want to pre-order, you can pre-order. I mostly care about, like, if you know that you want to read it, to try and like pick it up in the first week, because those are really helpful sales wise for the authors, and also reviewing it on your favorite platform. But to be honest, I'm happy that people read my books whenever they read my books. So yeah, that's it for completed projects, just A Clash of Carnivores. Now let's move on to my ongoing projects. And the first one I want to talk about, on the back of talking about A Clash of Carnivores, is the third and final book in the A Mastery of Monsters trilogy, which is wild to think about already talking about the book, but it's going to be coming out next year. It's going to be coming out in summer of 2027, and I'm working on it now, so it's a time to talk about it. So this will be, yeah, the conclusion, the final book in the series. It is its own sort of challenge. This was a bit of a difficult one because this was the first time I had to send my editor my fully first draft. Usually I do a first draft, I edit it, and then I sent it to my editor. This was a time where I was in a crunch and I was not able to do that. I just had to send her the naked first draft, which is very scary, and it has a lot of work. But I think in getting it back, getting her comments, and also me reading back through the manuscript and making my notes, so far I've plotted out all of the edits that need to be done, and I'm now starting to execute them. I am feeling more comfortable with what I have going on. I can see a lot of the potential. I think my editor can also see the potential, and I can see myself coming to a place with this manuscript where I think, okay, this is just as good, if not better, than every other book in the series, which is always my goal. Like I said, with series, I really kind of want the next book to be just as good as the one that came before, if not better. So that's what I've been working on. It is a lot. It is so much to do, but I'm not surprised, because when I was editing Clash, that was also a ton of work. When I was editing Mastery, writing Mastery, it's also a ton of work. These are just, they're big books with a lot of very intricate world building and a lot of things to build up to. And in this third book, I'm trying to pull everything together, pull together all the breadcrumbs and the things that I have been trickling through the whole series and bring it together in a whole. So it's a lot of work. I think it's going to take a few rounds to get there. Mostly my focus in this first round of developmental edits is a lot of the character journeys and a lot of the plot and structure things. I've also had to add in several different chapters to try and build on things. And I'm still kind of wondering about the beginning right now. I think because in both Mastery of Monsters and Clash of Carnivores, there's a lot of, like, there's a really action-packed sort of beginning section where like something very dramatic happens. And I don't really have that in this one yet, and it's bugging me, and I really do want to do that. I just haven't figured out what I want to do yet. And so I need some more time to ponder on that. I think when I get through to the next edit, I'll have had enough time to like sit and percolate, and I can think about what I want to be that big dramatic thing. I think just because the way that I've been writing these books is that even though they're large books, I've written them to be very fast paced, like to be really page turner, to be the sort of thing where you're like flying through a giant book. And I want to make sure that that I'm maintaining that throughout. I don't want people to get to this third book and then suddenly it feels really slowed down. And so I'm going to have to make some arrangements and shift things around and then figure out what I do with the word count, because I am really still wanting this book to be the same size as the other books. I worked really hard to keep the Clash word count very close to the Mastery word count. And so I'm also going to be doing that with this book. But anyway, I'm really excited about that. I've also seen the early cover sketches. Very, very exciting. It's going to look, I think, fantastic. The same artist that did the art for the first 2 books as well. And so I'm super looking forward to getting to show that eventually and also getting to see what the final version of it looks like. And then the title is also staying the same. So way back when I first thought of the idea for a Mastery of Monsters, I thought of the titles for each book in the trilogy all at once. It just like came to me. And it's been really fortunate. I've been really happy that all the titles have stuck. And I think this third book title is also going to stick. And so I'm generally very pleased that they've all come together, because every other book that I've published, the title has changed. I've had to change the title to something different. So it's kind of exciting for me to see that the title I picked in the first place is enduring. So yeah, that's the third Mastery book. I'm continuing to work on that. I'm going to be working on it probably edits for like a couple months just because of the sheer amount of work that needs to be done. But I am hopeful with everything that I'm doing. The next ongoing project is This Time Will Be Different, which is my adult debut thriller, which was recently announced. Yay! The secret is out. I will put the link in the description below if you want to watch the video where I talk about how I got this book deal, because it was an absolute journey. It was a very long, very involved journey to get to this point, but I'm really excited about it. It is about a woman who decides to go to this revolutionary retreat and give up her memories for the hope of finding true love. And then, of course, once she is at this retreat, it seems like something a little bit more sinister is going on. And it is about many different things, including memory and relationships, all sorts of stuff. It is set in Niagara-on-the-Lake in Ontario, so I'm continuing with my Canadian settings. And yeah, I think that's everything to say about that book, like description wise, but I'm very excited. It's also going to be coming out in 2027. So the same year the last Mastery book comes out. Unsure about season. I think originally it was spring and then it was summer, but now because the third Mastery book is in summer, we don't really want it to be in summer. So we're working out how that's going to proceed. But yeah, I have been working on that book actually for a while, but I could not say anything. And so I couldn't put it in ongoing projects. And I just kind of referred to it as a secret project, I think, because I couldn't get into it. So now I can get into it. I started working on this book, doing edits on it in August of 2025. So literally the next month after getting the offer for the book deal, because my editor was right on the precipice of going on maternity leave when she purchased the book. And so she was kind of like, here are my notes. And now I'm going. And I was like, okay. So then during the time that she was away, I was working on doing those notes and putting that together. So far I've done 2 larger developmental edits on the story. I'm really, really pleased with the progress that it's made and how much it's changed, even just from, when it went on submission to where it is now. So I'm really feeling positive about those changes. Right now I'm working on, or very soon to be, I will be working on kind of a mix of developmental and line edit. We're certainly getting closer to being kind of nearly done with it or like ready to send it to copy edits, that sort of stage. So I've been working hard on it. I'm really working hard on it. I'm more motivated if you watch my video where I talk about getting this book deal. There are times where I struggled, but I think knowing, of course, now that it's going to be coming out, I'm working really hard on it. I feel like my editor really understands the vision that I have for the story. I feel like we're on the same page, and it's just kind of working to massage and get it into the best state that it could be. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now, is just really trying to execute and get to that point. It is a little difficult when you worked on a project for a long time. I do sometimes find myself like separating from whether or not I think it's good and just kind of like executing what I know is right for the story, and separating the like subjective bit of like, do I think this is good? Do I not? Because as an author, I flip-flop between that so often when I'm working on a project. But with this project in particular and the amount of iterations, etc. it's had, I've just completely separated from it at this point. I'm just like, I need to execute what is right for the story. But I think that once we get into the copy edits, etc., I'll settle back down, I'll become more chill, and then I can be like, oh yes, this is good. Because I know it's good. Objective, like in my mind, I know it's a subjective opinion, but I know it's good. I'm just kind of floating all over the place because I'm like, I gotta get it done. But that is the state of This Time Will Be Different. The last ongoing project I'm going to talk about is what I'm calling #SlugBook. This is an adult horror that's set in an alternate version of Toronto in which slugs, yes, slugs have become an important commodity, and a woman whose job it is to get rid of them teams up with an influencer who is the only survivor of a still at large serial killer, and they have to work together to track down the killer before he can get to her. So that is kind of the summary that I'm going with. I think I'll eventually have to come up with like a little bit of a better summary to lock together better, because there is a reason why the serial killer thing goes with the slug thing, but I feel like it's not immediately obvious when I say it like that. But anyway, this is a book that I'm working on and have been working on for a while now. It has not been purchased by any publisher or anything. Right now, the goal is to get it on submission to publishers so we can see if someone would like to purchase it. And at the stage I'm at now, I'm doing what I think is kind of a lighter developmental / line edit on it. I got notes back from my agent and also from a beta reader, from a friend who read the book for me, because I wanted my agent's feedback, but I also wanted feedback from someone who's like a horror reader, like a big horror reader, so that I could get their opinion on the sort of like more horror aspects, that sort of thing. So I got all that feedback back. My agent was really pleased with the progress I'd made on the character arcs and getting better at drilling down the character motivations, that sort of thing. She just had some more minor notes about the world and certain different things to do with the slug stuff. And so that's kind of part of what I'm drilling down. She made all of those notes in the manuscript itself. So I'm kind of at like a track changes stage in which I'm making all of my changes in that way. So she can kind of look through and see the more minute changes. And then at the same time, my beta reader did make a comment of wanting to feel a bit more of that horror tension throughout. And so that's something I'm also trying to build up. I think I'll need one more line edit go through to really like pay attention only to that tension to get that pumped up really well. and then I'll feel like, okay, we're good. But now I'm kind of more focusing on like plot wise, making sure I'm getting in those kind of like scary, frightening moments and focusing on that bit. So that's what I would say is kind of the developmental end. I also ended up talking more with that beta reader about kind of some of the twists I had going on the story, because I did think that it could be better. And so I've added in something that I think has like really solidified it. And it was really helpful to talk through with that beta reader as well, who is Kevin, who you know from Authortube, YouTube. I'll link down his miniatures channel too, and the writing channel too, if you want to back watch his videos and that sort of thing. So he was super helpful. Thank you, Kevin, for helping me. And so that is the feedback I'm going back on. But overall, I'm feeling really pleased with it, and I do feel like we're getting really close. I don't want to put myself in a rushing frame of mind, so I'm really working on drilling down on making everything the best it can possibly be. So that's really positive. And overall, I just feel like it's a great story. I feel like this is definitely the most unique concept I've ever come up with. Certainly the most unique thing that has ever popped out of my brain. And so I'm really pleased with that. It's the sort of thing where I'm like, I cannot picture anyone else pitching this. So I feel like it's standout, which is great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, once we get it on submission, what the kind of response is going to be. But yeah, I'm just really looking forward to this book coming together. Let's move on to the new in 2026 projects. So in my last update, I had talked about wanting to work on a Romantasy proposal, that I didn't have a lot of ideas. I was pretty much operating on vibes, but I was really committed to going forward with this proposal. And I went to try and start working on an idea for this, and I quickly gave up. I think right now, as I'm working on Mastery, because this is such a dense world, it has so much world building, it has so many things that go into it, I think I've really come to understand the depth of work that has been involved in doing really intense fantasy like that. And for me, I know that any Romantasy I write would be either at that level or even more intense world building wise. And I realized that I would be working on that, doing this proposal, and then I kind of gotta like throw my hat in the ring in terms of like trying to sell it. And I think I just immediately became overwhelmed with going forward with that. Because it is, when you are working on a fantasy, when you're writing a fantasy, it is a huge amount of upfront work with no guarantees. And that's the case of writing all books. But for me personally, and my workflow and how much time I dedicate to projects, I know that it takes me something like a huge amount. It takes me so much more time to put together a fantasy. And even if I'm only doing a proposal, most of the work is that building up of the world, the building up of the characters, deciding how all this is going to go together. And by the time I get to the actual writing of the book, like I can write 100 pages like nothing, to be honest. I can write 100 pages, whatever, for days. But all of that backlog world building work, especially when I don't even have a good idea in mind, like I'm working with nothing, and trying to start from that point, build up all of this for the romantic. It was just, I was like, this is too much. I cannot do this. I already have too much on my plate. And even thinking about like when SlugBook is on submission, and I have one thing on my plate and I have more room to work on it, I just no longer felt like a Romantasy proposal was where I should put my energy. And I think it would be different if I'd had a very specific idea for a Romantasy that I was super passionate about, and I was like, I gotta write this. I think that would be really different, because then I would just do it and I would write it anyway, and I would just take the risk because I'd be like, I'm so passionate about this. But I have nothing to work with. I have nothing to work with. And so I was just kind of like, I don't think that's the best use of my time right now. I would, one day down the line, I still would love to write an adult romantasy, but I really do feel like I kind of need to wait for some sort of idea to strike me, or alternatively, wait until I have more time to revive that science fiction romantasy project that I started work on a long time ago and then kept meaning to go back to, and I still want to go back to it because that's something I'm solid on and really passionate about. I just know that I have to rework a lot of things and probably just rebuild all the world building from the ground up, but I also need a ton of time to do that, and I just don't really have that time right now. Especially with writing for a living, it's just the way that things are. I kind of need to exit. I don't have the time. That's just the best way to put it. I feel like for me to really put together something really solid from the bottom up that I would be happy with, I would need like a year where I either only had one book to work on or I had no books to work on, but could still somehow live financially. And I haven't found a way to put that together yet. So I'm going to end up tabling this Romantasy Proposal, and I will spend the time enjoying reading romantasies by other authors and gathering, experience and ideas. And maybe at some point something will kind of strike me that I feel like I can hit the ground running on a little bit more. But for right now, that whole idea is, lack of idea. The idea of the proposal is currently scrapped. This brings us to the last new in 2026 project, because I do want to work on something after the SlugBook goes on submission. And what I'm going to be working on, what I'm planning to work on, is a project now that I'm calling #TheCrowdedHouse. And I have talked about this project before. I talked about it in that video where I discussed a bunch of ideas that I kind of had percolating. I'll also link that down below. In that video, I also talked about the SlugBook very vaguely and ended up working on that and making that a book. So I feel pleased about the floating ideas I have in there. I think I talked about that sci-fi that I mentioned just now in the romantasy section. So yeah, if you want to hear about those random projects ideas percolating, I will also have that video linked down below. But The Crowded House would be an adult horror. And so that's where I think it's a better use of my time to concentrate on a project like that, especially if the SlugBook goes on submission and sells. There might be potential of a 2-book deal, in which case I could bring up The Crowded House and that could become something that becomes a part of that. And so I feel like it's best for me to continue on that trajectory than to get all mixed up in this Romantasy Proposal business. So anyway, what is The Crowded House? So this was my idea about a smart home where a group of friends from university, college days gather up after the death of one of their friends for a will reading in this smart home that goes awry, essentially. I originally had called it The Glass House, and I ended up switching that. For one, I don't really know even that necessarily fits with this idea anymore, but also because someone in the comments mentioned a book that exists called Glass Houses. It's by Madeline Ashby, who's hilariously also a Canadian author. I read it. It's very good. It's about like a tech company and their plane crashes in the middle of nowhere and they get stuck in this very weird smart home and things go awry. So you can see the similarities. I think it would be a great comp title potentially for this book, but the book that I have planned is actually very different from that book, thankfully, but it's really good. So if you want a smart home rich people, weird shenanigans book to read, I do recommend that one. So thank you to the commenter that mentioned that book. But yeah, essentially mine is a little bit different. It's a lot more focused on the way that friendships shift and change over time as you become older, but also the difference in perspective that you can have as an adult when you are looking back at the sort of friendships that you've had in the past. So it's that sort of dynamic that I'm wanting to explore. So I'm really excited about being able to do that. I may add in a romance anyway, but we'll see how I feel. But that's currently my plan for it. So I'm really excited about that. My goal would be to get the whole thing plotted so that early in 2027, I could draft it. I think it would be a little bit too ambitious to try and manage a first draft in this year, given my workload. I don't think that's realistic in any which way, but I would love to get it fully plotted, and I'd love to have like a pitch letter of some sort kind of ready to go, just in case, again, that situation comes back with the SlugBook where, you know, could this be a 2-book deal sort of thing? I'd love to have something like that ready, but that's kind of my plan for that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, at some point this year, I'll get to start working on that and share a little bit more. And that is it for everything that I've completed so far in 2026. I'm still working on, and I am planning to work on in the future for right now. So hopefully that helps give you better insight into what I'm doing. If you have any questions for me about anything, feel free to put them in the comments, and I'm happy to answer and whatnot. I do these videos twice a year. So I have one in the beginning of the year and one in the middle. So the next time you will see this will be in the beginning of 2027 when I kind of recap how everything else went in the year. And that is basically it. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, especially if you want to be notified about writing vlogs, that sort of thing, as I continue to work on these projects. The best way to see that is to subscribe. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.